Good evening, North Carolina. My name is Cece Grant, and I am the campaign director with Dream Corps Green for All. So happy to be here co-hosting this event with our wonderful partners at North Carolina League of Conservation Voters and Foundation. And welcome to the North Carolina's Mayor's Conversation about President Biden's Build Back Better agenda. For at least the past 2 decades, scientists have been ringing the alarm that climate change will cause extreme weather conditions and uproot millions of lives. Well, that day is here. We're living this reality in real time. Severe droughts in the West, wildfires in the Northwest, hurricanes in the South, and now a bomb cyclone has just left hundreds of thousands of people without power in the Northeast. These extreme weather conditions have caused American taxpayers more than $100 billion in the last year alone. This morning, for those of you who haven't heard the news, President Biden rolled out his Build Back Better framework that he negotiated with House and Senate leaders. And while we don't think this bill is perfect, this bill is the largest, most sweeping investments in combating climate change this country has ever seen. This bill will pump almost over $500 billion into cleaning up our energy, transportation, and agricultural practices. This bill will also drastically cut greenhouse gas pollution, reduce consumer energy bills, give our kids cleaner air and water, and create hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs right here in North Carolina. Most importantly to me and to a lot of us here, this bill will also advance environmental justice, unlike any other legislation has done, by investing in a 21st century clean energy economy and making sure that Black and Brown communities across the country share in the wealth. Lastly, for the budget hawks, this bill is fully paid for and will reduce the deficit by making sure that large profitable corporations can't zero out their tax bills, no longer rewarding corporations that shift jobs and profits overseas, and making sure that millionaires and billionaires just pay their fair share of taxes. And so for more on what we think this bill will do, let's watch this quick video by my Congresswoman, Deborah Ross.
We need to be able to cut emissions. We need to clean up our water and our air. League of Conservation Voters. I'm so excited for this panel discussion moderated by my great friend, Senator Natalie Murdock, with all these wonderful local elected officials to focus on the Build Back Better agenda and making sure that it includes real results for climate. I'm very committed to making sure that this Congress responds to our climate crisis and not a moment too soon. We need to be able to cut emissions. We need to clean up our water and our air. We need to have resilience, and we need to take science seriously and invest in the future. You are at the forefront of all of those things in North Carolina and throughout the country. Your advocacy makes an enormous difference. I'm working hard in Washington to see a better climate future in Build Back Better. Enjoy the event today with all these wonderful tools. Can't wait to see you back in.
Amazing, great. I feel lucky that I have someone as passionate as Congresswoman Ross in Washington, D.C., dealing with the craziness and fighting for us right here at home. At this time, without further ado, I am going to introduce you to our moderator and hostess of this event, my good friend, Senator Natalie Murdock. Natalie, take it away.
Sorry, I was on mute. Just want to thank everyone that was a part of bringing this great conversation together this evening with our mayors. And as Cece perfectly framed, the timing could not be better. So just this morning, just to recap, President Biden did provide a new framework for his Build Back Better plan, and that will include a $555 billion investment toward combating climate change. That includes $320 million in clean energy tax credits, $105 billion for resilience investments, and $110 billion in investments and incentives for clean energy and technology, as well as $20 billion in clean energy procurement and supply chain. So a lot of our conversation this evening will go around or center why is it so important? You know, why at this time is it our local elected officials, our mayors and mayor pro tems that can be really, really critical to moving this agenda forward. So before I introduce them, we have a video that will highlight some work that we are seeing throughout the state.
I'm Helen Poplowski. I'm the Director of Sustainability for the City of Winston-Salem. We oversee in our office several different divisions in the city that relate to environmental sustainability and energy-related work. We have an energy manager here who assists with that work, and we have overseen in the past the installation of electric vehicle charging stations. We, as a city, oversee 3 sites, one of which is actually being upgraded this year. So that's exciting. We got some funding to do that. And then those are all level 2. We're always looking for and applying for more charging stations and infrastructure. There's a bunch of programs, luckily, in our state through our Duke Energy Utilities Company, the state, a few state agencies. So we're actively pursuing several of these opportunities, hopefully looking to install some DC fast charge stations as well as a city. I believe that there are some locations already, but none of which the city itself is responsible for. We are hoping to be able to get some more of those locations installed in the next few years. And then this year we also received in our city's budget $125,000 to install solar PV panels on some of our city facilities or properties. This is the first time that we've ever been given funding to do this, so we're really excited for that opportunity. And we're actually right now doing some analysis to identify some of the better suited sites for that. So we're still very much in the beginning stages of that work, but it's exciting regardless to have that project come across our table, and we're looking forward to doing that in the upcoming years. That's a lot of the work that we have done most recently that we've seen positive outcomes from or hope to, such as with our solar. So that really covers a lot of the main stuff that we do.
All right. Thank you so much for that video, and just great to highlight why we're having this conversation. So much amazing work is happening at the local level with mayors across the nation, but definitely right here in North Carolina. So we will now introduce our panel of mayors from very different size cities and towns from all over to North Carolina. So looking forward to having a very substantive conversation this evening. First up, we have Mayor Tina Brown of Robertsonville.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. We also have Mayor Bill Safo of Wilmington.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yes, and Mayor Pro Tem Nicole Stewart of Raleigh. who is actually the climate change lead for Raleigh. So happy to be here with us.
Hey,
All right.
y'all.
Welcome, Mayor Pro Tem. Welcome, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. Do we have Mayor Mitch Colvin of Fayetteville? Were we able to get him in? If not, we'll go ahead and welcome Mayor Jackie Warner of Hope Mills. All right, with someone I do know that we have with us, Mayor Alan Joines of Winston-Salem. All right. All right, welcome, Mayor Joines. All right, so now that we have our panel up, we are going to jump right in with some questions. So first, starting off with our mayors out of Wilmington and Mayor Pro Tem of Raleigh, what are the most pressing environmental and climate change issues in your city? And what role do you play as mayor and Mayor Pro Tem? And those first two questions are for Mayor Safo out of Wilmington and Mayor Pro Tem Stewart out of Raleigh.
Well, here in Wilmington, obviously, since we're on the coast and we've been dealing with hurricanes and tropical storms for quite some time, it seems like we're getting one about every 3 years now. And there seems to be something that's happening with the climate. To see this many coming in as quickly as they are, we, the city of Wilmington, reached out in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence, when we had that hurricane on top of us for 48 hours, dropped over 36 inches of rain, cut off the city of Wilmington and literally southeastern North Carolina for 4 days. We couldn't get supplies in, we couldn't get people out. It was a pretty terrible situation for a lot of folks here. What we did was reach out to all of our neighbors that also had been impacted and had been being impacted over the last several years, and created the Eastern North Carolina Recovery, Disaster, and Resiliency Alliance. It's about 60 elected leaders from about New Bern all the way down to the South Carolina border, and really reached out to our state legislature to begin with and started a conversation about things that we could do to build resiliency in all of our communities. I will tell you, as a mayor of one of the larger metropolitan areas here in southeastern North Carolina, it's the only issue that I've seen where the urban areas and the rural areas have come together to speak with one voice, to talk about issues and things that we can do to help reduce flooding, get people out of flood impacted areas, build resiliency into our infrastructure, work with not only our state partners, but also our federal partners, because there's a federal responsibility here, especially with the interstate highway systems that they operate, and getting people in and out in the aftermath of a hurricane or national emergency like that. And for the first time, we seem to have gotten some pretty significant movement in the state legislature in regards to about a $200 million bill. And I believe the representative bill in the House started with, it's gone over to the Senate. And this would be a flood control act that is being passed statewide. It's $200 million for the state of North Carolina. To me, it's still not enough money, but at least there's a start there. And they see a lot of merit in trying to build more resiliency in all of our communities, rural as well as urban, because as I've made the argument or the debate to our state legislature, if you keep flooding out these rural communities, people are going to move out of those rural communities. And we're trying to stabilize and improve those rural communities, especially around some of our larger metropolitan areas. And they see the benefit in trying to do something here. So, and in addition to that, we as a city have taken it upon ourselves, like most cities around the state, in regards to passing a clean energy bill ourselves to reduce greenhouse emissions by 100% by 2050, with goals to have some significant reductions by 2035. And I believe it was a bipartisan effort. We brought a lot of people together, the public sector, the private sector, business, environmental activists, and come up with a pretty good broad plan to attack climate change in our community. In addition to that, we also know that one of the easy things that cities can do, and you get a lot of support from the community, is tree planting. And we created the Wilmington Tree Initiative, planting 1,739 trees. That was the date that the city was incorporated. And in our first year, we planted over 4,000 trees. Remarkable achievement. A lot of private sector folks came up, supported us with funding, as well as a lot of volunteerism that come out every time we have a tree planting and get out there and help us plant these trees. And we're putting them in the public realm, in the public right of ways, where we can have more of an impact. Obviously, with our land development codes, when things are being developed, we put more trees back after trees are taken away. But I felt that we could have a much bigger impact if we put them in the public right of ways that we control, and as well as working with the Department of Transportation in their right of ways, in the areas that they have designated that we can plant things. So it's a great initiative, but I think the mayors around the state have always been at the forefront of this and have always taken the lead. And it's great to see that the federal government now is really getting behind some of these initiatives that we have all been working on for quite some time. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Very well stated. Next up, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart out of Raleigh.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what Mayor Saffo may not know is I'm actually a UNC Wilmington grad. And so a lot of my passion for climate issues, but also for the work I do, is because of my connection back to Eastern North Carolina. My husband's family is also from Eastern NC. So I understand that every action we have up here affects our family and friends downstream. And so while our kind of issues and the ways we deal with these issues are different, my heart is with y'all every day. So Raleigh is facing a lot of the same issues as many of our peer cities, managing growth in a sustainable way, preventing sprawl without hindering smart growth in our surrounding communities, building a resilient community. And our goals and strategies for addressing the climate crisis are captured in our Community Climate Action Plan, which aims to reduce citywide greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. Our council adopted the plan earlier this year, and it's on our website. It's our roadmap to challenging and engaging our community to do three primary things: reduce greenhouse gas emissions from energy use, transportation, and waste, build community resilience to the impacts of climate change, and support climate equity in Raleigh. And our climate action plan was developed through significant stakeholder engagement because it's a roadmap for climate action by the broader Raleigh community and not just our city organization. So my role as an elected official is to help set attainable goals, help identify funding to meet those goals, and to ensure that we are continually engaging our community and stakeholders in this process.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, and welcome, Mayor Colvin. Glad we were finally able to get you connected here. Sorry about that. All right, and so you will be the third on the next panel so that we can let you get warmed up here. So we'll start with Winston-Salem Mayor Joines. As we all know, we have all been waiting for the Build Back Better Act to move forward because it will provide additional funding for all of you as mayors and our Mayor Pro Tem. So why is it so urgent that this legislation move forward, and how can it be helpful to you locally in Winston-Salem?
Well, thank you. It's certainly a big day for cities all across the country. And let me echo what my good friend Bill Saffo said. Mayors have always taken the lead. Bill, I'm sure you recall back during the Bush administration, when nothing was really happening in the federal government, the U.S. Conference of Mayors came up with the Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement that many of us signed on. I think Bill and I were one of the first probably 300 mayors in the whole country to sign on and support that. So seeing the federal government come on board today, $555 million will be a big help. Hopefully some of that will trickle down to the cities and help us continue doing the things we've already started doing, like turning our bus fleet into a hybrid fleet, using LED lights for our street lights and traffic signals, repurposing our buildings and restructuring them so they're much more energy efficient, and so on. I think I'm also very taken by the fact that there's a key part of this, that 40% of the effort should go to disadvantaged communities, and so that those individuals will have an opportunity to see their homes redone or otherwise addressed. We've had energy efficiency programs for disadvantaged citizens in our community that we paid for out of community development block grant funds and local funds. So it's going to be great to see the federal government come on board. And also, I'm intrigued by the whole idea of this civilian climate corps, which I understand there'll be over 300,000 individuals hired or that will go in, I assume will be coming in helping cities and others to carry out their energy programs.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Joines. Next up, we'll have Mayor Brown out of Robertsonville and Mayor Colvin. But also, Mayor Joines, I still have to highlight the phenomenal quote that you provided us this evening about the work that mayors do. When you said some people do not have the luxury of thinking about the environment because they are just trying to survive. But if you make it about a clean energy future with well-paying jobs, they see the picture. Very, very well stated. Mayor Brown, let us know you do preside over an area that's smaller, but that's why we want you to be here, because it's an issue that affects municipalities no matter what size.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm in a rural area of the eastern North Carolina side of North Carolina. And one of the things that I've seen now, I'm being a new mayor. So I'm like the rookie in the bunch here. And I'm honored to be on the panel with all of you experienced mayors and mayor pro tems and even you, Senator. But one of the things that I came into was trying to just assess where we were as a town. Unfortunately, I came into a not good situation here as coming in as a new mayor. But one of the things that I definitely wanted to look into was about the energy. There have been rumors, through with our constituents that, we had highlight bills and trying to figure out why. Why do we have highlight bills? Sometimes, what we have done was to assess that with the electric cities and to start a program and to see, check our rate studies, educate our constituents on things that they can do in the home to save in the energies, as far as maybe windows. Some windows may not have been sealed, weatherizing homes. That's definitely one of the projects that we were looking into. The other, again, is educating our constituents, changing the light bulbs, just as little things like that can make a big difference in your energy bill and making it easier for you to live. So we're doing that. We've again got with electric cities to do rate studies to check our meters. Some meters don't work. Some people don't even have a meter. So there was a lot of things that we had to do, coming in and assess where we are and where we're trying to go. So we definitely been on that job as far as, again, looking into the energy, saving energy, because we do have low income families here. A lot of jobs been cut. I'm probably going into another segment, but those all play a factor, because if your house is not energy sufficient, then you're going to pay a lot higher light bills, and you're paying higher light bills, but you're not making more money. Jobs are cut and things like that. So that's one of the projects that I was able to do, and we are still working on that. And I'm actually proud to do that, because we don't know when the last time there was a rate study or things, our meters were checked, the line, the pole, the lines on the pole, those things like that. We need to update those things too, and that will definitely help preserve the energy.
Thank you so much, Mayor Brown. And I'm actually going to take that as a segue for Mayor Colvin. Let's talk a little bit about how climate change does have a disproportionate impact on minority, low-income communities and communities of color. So what will it take to make sure that the legislation we're talking about, the Build Back Better agenda, or federal initiatives will benefit Black and brown and low-income residents in a city like Fayetteville?
Well, thank you so much, Senator Murdock, for hosting this, and I apologize for my technical ignorance at the beginning of this.
No problem.
I think that really the underlying problem, I think Mayor Brown kind of cracked the door open, that we know, it's no doubt about it, that there's been redlining and institutional placement of minorities in the lowest lying, most flood prone areas of every city. Look at the lower ninth wards in New Orleans, to every city. All of the Martin Luther King drives and the south sides of everywhere flood first. And those are the people who can least afford it. So our system ends up absorbing that. So what we're doing here from a broader standpoint is we're trying to fix that. We're trying to incentivize some of these areas where these places flood time and time again, trying to relocate these folks. FEMA came in and paid for the final time, because we were hit twice within a 3 or 4 year period, for the final time for flood mitigation, and they won't be back. So the next 500-year storm, these people are going to be out of luck unless we have some plans for it. So we're working hard to try to get them out of those areas where they never should have been allowed or issued building permits. We have to embrace that, I think, from an institution, to say we messed up, and how we fix it is we incentivize and relocate. The other thing is, from a broader standpoint, is I think that we're doing things to try to mitigate it. We know that 4-to-1 resiliency dollars go a lot farther than repair dollars. So we're cleaning out our creek beds and rivers and streams and those kind of things. And we're trying to mitigate this from happening again. And finally, from an environmental standpoint, we've been aggressive. We purchased about 5 electric buses for our transit system. We plan to continue to aggressively do that, to hopefully have an all-electric, low-emissions fleet in the future.
Thank you so much, Mayor Colvin. And some of you hit on this a little bit earlier, but just to get into more specifics so that we can learn more about what's going on in some of your cities. For our mayors in Winston-Salem and Wilmington, and Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, what are some of the specific projects that you would like to enact locally, that you simply just need the funding for, that will provide more health and economic benefits to your local community? Let's start with you, Mayor Seyfo out of Wilmington.
Well, one of the things, Interstate 40, Interstate 95, the main corridors into southeastern North Carolina, there's several sections in those corridors that continuously flood. And we've talked with the U.S. Department of Transportation, as well as the North Carolina Department of Transportation, to see about elevating those sections of the roadway to be able to bring people in the aftermath of the hurricane. First and foremost, public safety is a big issue in the aftermath of a significant storm, and we've got to be able to get supplies in and get people out and get people into the area to help clean the area up in the aftermath of a storm. So the federal funding is going to be extremely necessary for us to be able to achieve those particular goals. The other thing that we saw that impacted us significantly here was, obviously, when the power goes out, and power could be out for 10 days, 15 days, a lot of our schools that shut down, obviously, for the hurricane, got mold in them. And, extracting that mold situation and getting it out of the schools and getting the kids back in and making it safe, it took some time. Some of these students were out of school for a month to 2 months. To make the schools safe. So we're looking for significant generators that will allow the schools to keep their air on, after the hurricane passes, so we can have that air flowing in those schools, so we don't have to shut it down and get that mold issue that we were dealing with all over Eastern North Carolina in the aftermath of that storm. Obviously, as Mayor Colvin mentioned, trying to get people out of flood-prone areas that continuously flood. And it doesn't even have to be now in a hurricane. It could be just a tropical storm that's dropping 7 to 8 inches of rain. And in Eastern North Carolina, as we've witnessed here, coming down from Fayetteville all the way down, it's pretty flat land. And you're just catching it, as Mayor Pro Tem Stewart said, from the triangle too, that all that water is coming down the Cape Fear River, and then we're getting backed up on the ocean, and it's just creating a mess in Eastern North Carolina after a storm, and just making certain that we can get those folks out of those flood-prone areas. And if we have to buy them out to move them to higher ground, so be it. And then the other thing that we are doing, that we have been doing, 2 things, is that whatever the floodplain is elevated at, if it's, let's just say if it's elevation 10, we go 2 feet above that. We'll make the whoever's building a house or building there go 12 feet and that helps. And in addition to that, is just making certain that all of our buildings, especially our public buildings, are going to need to be strengthened to hurricane force winds of up to a Category 4. Most of our buildings probably Category 2, Category 3 maybe. But we have seen in some of these storms, they can get up to a Category 4, and especially if we're using some of these buildings for shelter, and we've seen some of these storms, especially down in the Gulf and around Florida, where they're coming in at Category 4, sometimes even approaching a 5. We could have significant loss of life if we don't strengthen those buildings to more hurricane force winds of a Category 4. So those are some of the things that we would be looking to help from the federal government to help us to ascertain and to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And skipped over the fact that I have more family than I can even count in Wilmington. And so oftentimes when I talk about the need to build more resilient communities, I reference my family members that have to keep, a certain amount of money on credit cards, knowing I may have to pack up and leave my home until I can get additional resources, and everyone simply cannot afford that. So Mayor Joines, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, what are some local projects that you would like to implement in your respective cities if federal funding comes down the pipeline? Oh, unmute for us, Mayor Joines. Sorry about that.
I should know by now. Unmute. New Webster term. I would agree certainly with my colleague, Mayor Saffo. The whole storm drain system in Winston, we're an older city, a lot of older storm drains. We're having a lot of failures here recently. So I think using some of that to help rework some of those, make sure it's as efficient as possible, because we do get heavy rains here in Winston as well, coming from storms that just come across the mountains and hit us there. I think I want to continue to help our low-income homeowners in terms of making their homes and houses more energy efficient and save them money, as well as being good for the environment as well. I'd like to maybe think about some small business assistance programs to help individuals get into the whole idea of companies that are related to energy efficiency, sustainability, clean energy, because there will be good jobs, I think, that are available in that regard, so we can help some of our entrepreneurs here locally get into that. And then finally, looking at incentives for homeowners to convert to clean energy fuels, whether it be solar or whatever it might be. So a number of ways that we can put this money to use.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. So here in Raleigh, we've got a number of projects that are in the planning stages that absolutely need this funding. I think like many other cities, we're ready to implement projects that contribute to President Biden's vision of reliable infrastructure, housing affordability, and climate equity. We are currently creating a bus rapid transit network, rebuilding our streets to complete street standards with a focus on Vision Zero. We're updating aging utility and stormwater systems. We're building more housing and funding housing rehab work. And the Build Back Better Act has identified these needs among many others. So cities of all sizes have needs that have gone unmet and unfunded for a really long time. And we're doing what we can to increase funding at the local level, but there's so much work to do. The Build Back Better Act will help Raleigh and our sister cities advance these priorities in a comprehensive way. We'll see roads rebuilt, but in a way that reflects a shift towards transit. We'll see new affordable housing constructed that results in both energy efficiencies and energy savings gained for low-income families. And it's super exciting to think about the challenges that face us as opportunities. And I really think that's what President Biden wants us to do.
Yeah, thank you all so much for that. It's really exciting to think about what's possible if you simply have the funding to do it. And as all of you know, every local government does not have that funding to do what's on its own. They don't have that tax base or access to federal grant dollars. So just really, really imperative that we work to get this passed so that those dollars can come to your local communities. So some of you actually just touched on this, but the further people live from their jobs, schools, and services, they no longer spend less time commuting in cars which creates more greenhouse gas emissions. When people have affordable options for housing and transit close to where they live and work, they can spend less time commuting and reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. What's the link between the climate crisis and affordable housing? What are you doing locally in your respective cities to address affordable housing? So let's start with Mayor Colvin on this question, then Mayor Brown, and Mayor Joines, if you can share what you all are doing in Winston-Salem around affordable housing.
So thank you, Senator. So probably about 4 years ago, we had a study called Pathways for Prosperity that was implemented that told us that we had probably 10 to 15,000 people at that time that were paying more than 40% for somewhere to live. So it put them in a high risk of poverty. Now that number's gone up to 25,000. So we realize it's growing exponentially for people to live in the city that we're trying to create and entice them to live in. They can't afford to live here. Even city employees have to live outside of the city and drive back in. So we understand the importance and the connection to all of the overall big picture, which is climate change because of those commute issues. So what we're doing now, we're setting up a housing trust fund with a portion of our rescue dollars. And then we plan to package that with a bond to take to the voters in November of next year to not only address housing and to really put a funding mechanism in place to really incentivize more than just the traditional affordable housing that's offered through North Carolina Housing Finance. You know, that's just such a difficult program to participate in that you only have a few developers that really want to do it, and the criteria is so tight. So really the workforce housing and the people who are caught in the middle who don't necessarily qualify for the federal income levels, but maybe they're only making $15 an hour and just can't afford to live in the community that they work in. And so we're looking at that from an affordable housing standpoint.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Okay, well, definitely in our county, there's a shortage of affordable housing. Again, as a new mayor, you kind of assess those things because we do have industries here who bring executives here and employees here from other areas, and there's nowhere to live. So I have personally been having a conversation with our county commissioners and our state representatives to bring housing here because it's definitely a shortage here. The good thing is that as far as Robinsonville is concerned, that there are houses here that go on the market and they stay on it for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. So we know that people are moving here, but everyone doesn't want to live in a house. Some people want to live maybe in a small apartment size or single family home. So those are the things that I've been in conversation with our county and local officials regarding affordable housing. You may have a single person here that works in one of our industries here who really don't want to live in a house. It's just too much upkeeping. So we would like to bring some apartments here and single family homes, affordable homes, to keep those. We want to keep our residents and our constituents here. We don't want them to go to Greenville or Rocky Mount or Tarboro area. We want to keep them here. So in order to do that, we need to provide affordable home here. So that, just having a conversation and having those people at the table and having a conversation.
All right, and Mayor Joines, if you want to share in Winston-Salem some affordable housing projects and initiatives that you all have or that you're working on already. Sorry, I'm mute. I jinxed you. Sorry about that.
Yeah. We had an affordable housing study done in 2018 that indicated we needed somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 new units in the next 10 years. So now it's 8 years. I created an affordable housing coalition of developers and citizens and bankers and so on that helping us put together strategies. We did get our voters to approve $10 million in a bond issue in 2018 to help us carry that out. And I've asked the city council for $20 million from our COVID relief dollars to go towards that, but that's just a drop in the bucket to do those kind of numbers. So what we're trying to do is right now every chance we get, we're acquiring property that we will do and use it to put into a deal with a developer as a partner, and we will leverage our dollars with the private sector funds.
Mhm.
We're also in the process of creating our own local housing trust fund. Our good friends down in Charlotte created one with, I think it was $60+ million in it. So I'm working to create something similar to that here. And again, we also have a very aggressive code enforcement program that's going after trying to preserve existing housing stock and not get them into the demolition category, but get them preserved. And we do have a way of, we can, in some cases, get those over to organizations such as Habitat for Humanity to help restore those properties and keep them in the housing stock.
Thank you so much. Great examples that I wish that we could just spend a whole hour talking about affordable housing. That is one of my favorite topics and so critical that mayors and folks at the local level are really, really working on that so we can really do all we can to fight that. So we're going to take on some of these social media questions. Folks are chiming in. So the first one is, how are we tracking greenhouse gas emissions from a building level? So do we have a panelist that wants to tackle that question? Greenhouse gas emissions at a building level. All right, and if not, there is a part two. And with this one, I definitely know our mayor in Wilmington is the perfect one for this question. Someone said they want to get a better understanding of how we can build more resilient communities at the local level.
Well, I think in building resilient communities, you definitely don't want to build in flood-prone areas. I think that was a policy that we used to have many years ago. And I think the federal government, through these storms, what we've all witnessed is that when we keep rebuilding in flood-prone areas, it's just throwing good money after bad. It's ridiculous. So I think first and foremost, we need to move folks out of those flood-prone areas. We have to buy them out, but get them out of harm's way. I think the other thing is that we're all dealing with as a growing state with 1 million additional people that are going to be coming in here within the next 10 years, like we saw in the last decade. I think just looking at our overall land development codes and how we live and how we commute. We just updated one. We haven't updated our land development code in 40 years. We just did it. And what our citizens are telling us is they want services closer to where they live. They want more walkability and biking opportunities. They want housing that is affordable, yes, which will play a very big part in all of our policies. And you have to, since we don't have inclusionary zoning in the state of North Carolina, you have to work out incentive policies with the private sector if you're going to put any significant amount of affordable housing in place. And then in our particular case down here, the thing that we have done is reduce some of our density levels on some of our multifamily units, but then giving those density levels back if a certain amount of affordable housing is part of the development. And then just looking at better ways to build energy efficient type infrastructure, as well as housing, and working with the private sector as well as the public sector. But I also feel that if we're going to ask the private sector to do a lot of the things that we are challenging our community to do, we have to take the lead in our public buildings and in all of our public spaces, and whatever we can do to improve that and to kind of show the way. I think that's where we play a leadership role in demonstrating to the private sector and to the citizens of our community that we're serious about this. And I believe that we all are. Throughout this state, we've been hearing this, and I know that me and Alan have sat on several panels, and I know Mayor Coven has too, with U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I think this is kind of a thing that's happening all over the country, where mayors are really taking much more of the initiative and have been for quite some time in dealing with a lot of the sustainability and environmental issues that we're all dealing with, because we hear from our citizens, and we don't have the luxury to hide up in Washington or even at the state level. We meet these people in the grocery store. We meet them out in a lot of meetings, and they tell us exactly what they want us to do. And we actively have to get things done here at the local level, no doubt.
We do, we do. And since we are coming to a close with Q&A, just some final thoughts. Let's go back to Mayor Pro Tem Stewart and Mayor Colvin of just what this can mean for you locally. I mean, what are some dreams and visions that you have for your local community, and just what could this mean to your city as we look forward to hopefully getting this legislation passed?
Absolutely. I appreciate so much of what Mayor Saffo just said about how we really view land use and transportation planning through a lens of climate. It's really what drives me to do all this work, and the connection back to affordable housing, but also housing choices is huge. And building those walkable communities. Folks are now talking about the 10-minute city where you can get to your job, you can get to your grocery store, you can get to your schools, the other amenities you need all within your house within 10 minutes, ideally without ever getting in your car, but still within 10 minutes. And so I think as this money, hopefully fingers and toes crossed, comes our way, we'll really be able to actually hit the ground running. I think as cities across the state, to really re-envision and do the work that we know we need to do, which will just also make our cities and our state more climate resilient. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Thank you. Mayor Colvin?
Thank you, Senator. So I know that we have at least a $250 million stormwater problem. Can very much relate to Mayor Joines and being an older city with smaller, older infrastructure. It needs to be changed. Development was put in, but the infrastructure was not upgraded. So we have some real flood-prone areas, not only when there's a hurricane, but just in a hard rain. So we really have to get serious about that. So we could use a lot of the money to kickstart that. The other thing is, we noticed during the last two hurricanes that both the city and the county's operations for emergency response was in the center of our city, which was also a flood-prone area. So we need to relocate our emergency operations to an area that's not flood-prone, because God forbid, during Hurricane Matthew, when you had to come down Hay Street on a boat, if our 911 workers were trapped or they couldn't get to work, and now we can't respond to the needs of the citizens. So those are two big things that I think we could really kickstart if this bill passes.
All right, and quick bonus question. Since we did get it online, Mayor Colvin, how will the city support schools in transitioning from diesel buses to electric buses?
Well, here the city council doesn't really make the decision for the schools. We have a school board, but we work in close collaboration because they do operate within our community. So hopefully, maybe we can get some type of joint agreement to try to transition to low emissions, all electric or hybrid buses, not only in our transit system, but in our school system within a reasonable amount of time, and set it as a goal. I think that's very doable.
All right. And right as we transition to the end of our program here, Mayor Brown and Mayor Jones, final comments on what would really be helpful to you and your local community, just specific projects that you would love to implement through Build Back Better.
Okay. Well, as a rural area, again, we want to focus on, access to quality education for our children. As a county, as a county and as a state, we know that, when you look at North Carolina and you look at our schools, where they rank, unfortunately, our area is probably out of the 150 or so schools. We were at one time 112. So we definitely want to focus on improving our education to the children. We also want to have easy access to public transportation. We don't have any public transportation here besides the county transit. Also, our garbage collection, our sewer. We also want to renovate some of our public streets and parks. Those things will help benefit the better quality of life for our constituents. Also, maybe, restoring some and giving some incentive to property owners that own buildings in these small towns in our main street. You give them incentive to go in and change things around and make it energy sufficient. So those are some of the things that we've been talking about and some of the things that we are putting in place. work on.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Brown and Mayor Joines. Close us out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for pulling us all together tonight. It's been a great discussion. I think I see a lot of ways to use these dollars. It's been alluded to more efficient transportation system. We want to rework some of our routes as well. Will help us in a lot of ways. We have a goal of reducing our carbon emissions 50% by the year 2030. So we can apply these dollars in a number of ways. But I keep coming back. I want to try to figure out a way to use this to create jobs within the new economy, if you will.
Thank you all so much. Those of you who are watching from home, please give another round of applause to our phenomenal panel. Again, as they said it best, they have been at the front lines from the beginning when the federal government was not acting or failed to act or provide them with funding. Mayors and our local governments really just did it. They just went out and did it on their own. And so now we hope that you will have some financial and federal assistance to move forward. But we thank you all for your leadership and look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you all again. Thank you. So now at this time, it is my honor to introduce actually my previous employee, Montravius King. I did have the pleasure of working with him. He did serve me in my office for some time before that. One of my sheroes, now Senator Sidney Batch, but thrilled that he is now with the League of Conservation Voters as Clean Energy Campaigns Director. In his role, he will work to develop and implement targeted issue campaigns around climate and energy, which again, what a timely topic. And we are so thrilled that this is the time that we can finally move forward here in North Carolina and beyond on these critical issues. So with that, I kick it off to Montravius.
Thank you, Senator Murdoch, for moderating tonight. And congratulations once more on receiving the 2021 Defender of the Environment Award at last night's highly successful Green Tie Award. As her former legislative aide, I witnessed her dedication and passion for serving her community and her constituents. And, you know, people always refer to her as a rising star. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. She is a star, and her work speaks for itself. So I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work with her. I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has worked so hard behind the scenes to make this event possible. For the sake of time, I will refrain from listing names, but you are appreciated. To our virtual audience, thanks for tuning in. We hope you are inspired, and we hope that you are fired up and ready to go to help us push Build Back Better to the finish line. If you're watching from Facebook, please take a quick second to like the League of Conservation Voters Foundation page. And while you're at it, go to your search bar and like the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters page as well. And if you're watching from YouTube, please look at the top right corner of your screen and hit that subscribe button for us so that we can keep you in the loop on future events and special programming. To our distinguished panelists, Mayor Brown, Mayor Sappho, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, Mayor Colvin, Mayor Warner, Mayor Jones. Words cannot express how grateful we are to each of you for giving your time and remarks tonight. As the senator stated earlier, you guys are on the front lines of this climate crisis and know firsthand how it intersects with other issues like the economy, education, affordable housing, healthcare, and more. Your leadership will continue to be critical at this moment, in this very hour, to address the climate crisis and create a future that works for all of us. We are entering a new phase of this historic movement to tackle the climate crisis, create good paying, clean energy jobs, expand healthcare, and much more. We finally have a framework. While it's not perfect, it adequately addresses systematic inequalities from the bottom up and not the top down. We must not allow our excitement to blind our efforts to get this package across the finish line. With this momentum, I encourage all of you to stay vigilant, remain active in this fight. It's not a done deal until President Biden signs this historic package into law. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to close out with a short video presentation featuring sustainability efforts in Asheville, Hope Mills, and Winston-Salem. Thank you.
Dr. Kimwana McCray, Mayor Pro Tem of Hope Mills in North Carolina, and I'm calling on Congress to pass the Build Back Better Act. In America, we the people are on a never-ending mission to form a more perfect union. We don't accept good enough. We can't abide just okay. As President Biden likes to say, this is America. There's nothing we can't do if we do it together. For more than a year and a half, we have been rocked by a pandemic that has changed our country forever. But some have had more than others, namely communities of color and low-wealth families who were already disproportionately affected by economic, social, and environmental injustice. We're all dying to get back to normal, but too many people are already actually dying, showing us problems we must solve to make our union more perfect. We can't afford to just go back to the old normal. We must build back better than ever before. We must learn from this experience to shape our future in a way that lifts everyone up and leaves no one behind. We must build a long-term economy in which everyone has a good-paying job that supports their family. We must build a sustainable planet where everyone has an affordable home, an affordable power bill, clean air to breathe, and clean water to drink. We must build a world where health disparities and economic inequities are eliminated. We must prepare better for future pandemics and economic downturns. We must tackle the